medical device manufacturing, and up until 2019, and for several of those years, I had complete P&L responsibility for the Western United States, the organization that I worked with. I've also have a black belt and Lean Six Sigma black belt, so I love manufacturing. I love seeing businesses grow. I love talking about culture. And so, and I've worked with organizations and industries around the world. And one of the things that I see is the same pattern again and again. This is that companies start strong, they grow, they succeed, and then at some point they hit a ceiling. And it's not because of opportunity, it's not because of the market, but it is because something inside the organization stops scaling. So now what you just heard from Hamad is you've heard about why businesses hit this growth ceilings. But what I'd like to do is to take you inside of the organization and show you, in the time that we have, some of the things that actually cause that ceiling, and that is in most organizations. Really think that scaling means doing more sales, more people, more effort. But really, that is not scaling your business. Scaling is building something that works without you as a founder, without you as who has brought this organization in creation, the one that developed the purpose around the organization. And here's the thing: if your growth in your organization still depends on you, then you're not scaling. That's where the concept and the misdirection lie here. So what brought you to this point? What got you here? All the success and everything that you've enjoyed is not going to get you there. And what that means really is with the way the world is changing, the need to pivot, the need to really change with the world that we live in right now and how fast changes are happening. Early success in your company will create habits that later become constraints. And so the global reality around what this is that global markets don't test your product. That's not what they're testing. They test the culture of your organization. And that means that, consistency, reliability, and discipline are really low, and then they plateau. And I'm sure that you've seen a lot of this happen. And leadership and culture stop evolving. When those businesses grow to a certain point, that's where the leadership and culture stop evolving. Growth slows, and it's not because of the market. It's not because of what's going on in the marketplace. It's because leadership and systems stop evolving. They stop keeping up with what's going on globally. They stop keeping up with, where the founder initially wanted that to be. And so that's, where we plateau at. So here's one of the things that we talk about, this hero leadership concept. And it worked early on, right? It works as a founder. I'm sure that each of you in this room that has started a business and have enjoyed some of that early success is, the leadership, what we refer to hero leadership, works early. But here's the problem: is it breaks at scale. It's just break at scale that becomes decision bottlenecks. there becomes that founder dependency on everybody looking towards the founder for insight, for direction. And then it becomes this firefighting culture. Chasing the tiger by the tail. You got a hold of that tiger by the tail and you're just chasing and putting out fires as you go. So the main point here is what made you successful early on becomes the constraint later. That is where the problems start to develop. That is the constraint. And so in most organizations, culture is not intentional. But regardless of being intentional or not, you still have a culture in place. And if it's not intentional, then it's not aligned. And if it's not aligned, then it's not scalable. And eventually, and here becomes the reality. If you don't design the culture, if you don't intentionally design the culture of your organization, it designs itself. And this is one of the things that I have seen time and time again with different organizations when there is not that clear purpose of the organization. And I'm not talking about vision or mission. I'm talking about the clear purpose of the organization. Being into manufacturing and lean and Six Sigma and all these things, one of the big things that we look for is waste. How do we eliminate waste in our organizations? But here is the truth. The greatest waste in any organization, it's not money, it's not strategy, it's untapped human potential. Biggest waste in any organization is people's time, people's energy, and people's talents. And here's the thing, business, organizations don't lack talent. There is so much. Here's the thing, individual decisions then become that distributed leadership, that distributed decisions. Decisions then get made in the right places. They get made for the right reasons. They get made by the people that you've entrusted this system to. So I'm going to ask you all a question. And it's interesting right now that the cameras are kind of off, so I can't see everybody. But I want you to think about this for just a minute. Everybody in this room. If your business scale, if your business doubled in scale, profits or revenue or whatever that is coming in, could your leadership scale at the same rate? Would your leadership scale if this business doubled? That's one of those critical elements that we've seen time and time again, that there's a focus on scaling our business. And once that happens, and we get to the point where we see that additional success, the leadership falls behind. And once that leadership starts lagging, you need to truly ask yourself, what is going to happen? What will happen to your organization if the focus is strictly on doubling business versus are we, is the leadership coming along at the same rate? This is one thing I want to bring up at this point. Across the globe, there's a recent study done with 18,000 human resource leaders around the globe in organizations everywhere. The question was asked to them, do you have a leadership pipeline in place? Or do you believe that a leadership pipeline is critical? 85% of them, 85% of these 18,000 said absolutely. Having a leadership pipeline in place is an absolute necessity for the success of the organization. But then when pressed further, the number was staggering. It's only 5% of those 18,000 that represented different organizations actually had a leadership pipeline in place. And if you look at this from a global scale, that's a serious human capital issue. How are we going to scale our businesses if the culture and the leadership is not in place, if we don't have the right systems in place to get those right leaders in place? So, alignment. And this is critical for culture. Alignment ensures everyone in the organization is moving in the same direction. And here is the key: without constant supervision. We all know what we need to be doing. We're all engaged. You've got the right talent engines going. You've got the right people in place for the right reasons. And this is what really continues to drive that scale. It's when we can move in the same direction again without that constant supervision or that hero type leadership or founder type leadership. So here's some of the accountability piece. And one of the things around this is having clear expectations. You cannot hold people accountable to expectations that are not clearly defined. And so if success is unclear, then the performance in the organization is going to be inconsistent. Ownership. Accountability requires ownership. Not just shared responsibility. Requires ownership with everybody across the board. This then creates, the fact that there are more, this one person owns the outcome, which is maybe C-suite or C leaders or whatever, but the accountability and the ownership, and that is, the accountability, it requires that ownership. How do we create that? The next one is this one, and this is a big one. This is something that happens quite often. And this is where most organizations break. Do not lower the bar. When performance drops, leaders tend to lower the standard, or they become just the opposite. They become that toxic leadership where it becomes down to, the frustration, just do what I say, versus something that really, creates more accountability. So do not lower the bar. So when performance drops, that is not the problem. We don't lower the bar. You probably heard the idea that work expands to fill time. I'm sure many of you have heard this. But it's the same thing is true in organizations. Performance expands or contracts to meet the standard. This is one of the most critical elements that we do. So do not lower the bar. This is something that we must realize around accountability. Strong organizations don't lower the bar. They develop people to meet it. That's the difference. We need to develop the people to meet it. So let's talk about trust a little bit. This goes back to the accountability. Trust is one of the most misunderstood concepts in business. Regardless of who I talk to, that's a big misunderstanding. And because most people think that trust is soft. It's a soft skill, right? But trust is not soft. It's a performance multiplier. It enables speed. It enables execution. It enables ownership. And without the trust, we start to see the friction in business, and there becomes more friction in decisions, more friction in communication, more friction in accountability. And for everybody here that understands friction, we all know that friction slows things down, right? It creates issues. It creates problems. But trust reduces that friction in your organization, and therefore it increases the speed at which we can execute and scale our businesses. So here's one thing that I really want to touch on, because throughout the course of my career, in medical device, and even I've had global partners, different vendors around the world, and having complete responsibility, we provided products to 52 different hospitals in the Western U.S. on a daily basis. So here's one thing that global partners expect when it comes to vendor expectations. And this is one of the critical elements of growing your business. What global partners expect is quality, reliability, consistency, and transparency, response speed, and compliance. All of these things, we can break this down to quality, distribution, inventory, production, all these different things that matter. But here's the reality. This is the reality for each of you in these businesses. And this goes back to that global slide that I talked about earlier, that you're not being simply looked at for your product, you're being looked at by your culture. And here's the reality, okay? You're not being evaluated by after the relationship is built. That's not what you're being evaluated on. You're being judged by your global partners from the very first shipment you send out. Your reputation doesn't start after 10 deliveries. It starts with the very first one. And those are things that, you can break that down into whatever, KPIs you want to talk about, fill rates, on-time performance, whatever that is. But the point is these things are improved through organizational culture. Having the right people in the right place, having the right talent in the right place. And over time, this comes down to one thing. Execution, consistency builds long-term trust. That long-term trust with your global partners is what in turn is going to help you to continue to scale at the rate that you wanted. I heard Ahmad talk about me and Ahmad had several conversations about speed and consistency and quality in different markets and how critical that is to the long-term success of not only your business, but the community that you live in, the community that you work in, the community that your organizations represent. That is a critical concept that needs to be understood. So, and this is what partners are buying. Most companies believe they win because of their product, right? Have the world's best product, whatever that is. But here's the thing, and here's the truth. Most companies believe they win because of their product. Better quality, right? Better pricing, better features, that's us. That's what we offer. But that's not what your global partners are really deciding. Slow this down. But, they're buying your consistency. And because, here's the real question. The real question isn't, can you do it just once? The real question is, can you do it time and time and time again? Consistently. That's one of the things that you need to remember. And that's why organizational culture, beyond the hero leadership, beyond being able to scale it from the old way to understanding having systems developed, leadership. So here's the thing, again, going back to that slide, you're being judged for the very first shipment. There's no problem. People within your organization is a signal into who you are. It's a mirror into who your organization is. So that kind of reflection here, and these are questions I'd like you to answer yourself. Is leadership truly aligned? Is your leadership truly aligned? Is your culture intentional? Not just something that coasts, but intentionally put together and intentionally developed with the right talent engines, with all these critical elements. And here's the big question. Can your organization scale without the founder? Can it scale without? Can it scale if, and I heard Ahmad say this, if we were out. So I hope that, everybody was able to gather something for this. And so Ahmad, back to you.
Thank you very much, Rich, for a very nice and presentation.
Thank you, Rich. You've told us how the world lies. Thank you. And if you can hear, we should be able to hear. They're already here repairing the ceiling that we were breaking through. Thank you once again. And if there are any questions from the audience, may I request the audience? There should be questions, please, I beg you. Questions, not keynote speeches. We've already had two. Just questions, one question to a person. Thank you very much. Tariq Asmat.
Hi Rich, this is Tariq Asmat. We recently connected through LinkedIn, courtesy Hamad. It was an insightful presentation and knowledge sharing, wonderfully presented by yourself. Thank you very much, and we, on behalf of the Lahore Chamber of Commerce and Industry and Integrated Marketing Committee, we would like to thank you for joining us and sharing your thoughts with the audience. We have more than 100 people sitting here. Unfortunately, you can't see them, but we will share the photographs and video with you later.